Coming up on The Cut, we recap the election, the latest in the races in Arizona and across the country.
And the winning Powerball ticket has been sold for a record amount, the search for the winner, and the next jackpot on the way.
And did you see it in space? Experts are calling it the blood moon, the reason you will not see this moon for a long time. The Cut starts now.
Hello and welcome to the Cut Network. I'm Leslie Chapman.
And I'm Denson Cortez. The 2022 midterms are coming to an end. Cover reporter Tyler Abrams is here with some of the big shifts from this week.
Thanks, Denson. After millions of voters flocked to the polls this past Tuesday, we take a look at the results of key ballot propositions here in Arizona. Proposition 209, which would decrease the interest rates of medical debt and make more assets exempt from debt collection, will pass with a 70% yes vote. Proposition 211, which would require additional disclosures into dark money campaign donations, will also pass with a 72% yes vote. Proposition 128 has been rejected with a 63.6% no vote against allowing the state legislature to modify proposals or laws passed through ballot propositions if they contained illegal or unconstitutional language. Critics of Proposition 128 believe that this prop would give the legislature too much power over the voters. As for the national stage, Republican J.D. Vance has won the Senate election in Ohio against Democratic candidate Tim Ryan. A former Trump critic turned Trump advocate, Vance surprised supporters by not crediting former President Trump for the victory, despite his endorsements into his campaign. Also in the Ohio governor race, incumbent candidate Mike DeWine secured victory with 62% of the vote against Democrat Nan Whaley. However, the Associated Press and New York Times have called the Pennsylvania Senate race. Former television Dr. Mehmet Oz has been overtaken by former Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman, a Democrat. The supposed big red wave the Republicans were hoping for turned out not to be the case. However, Democrats and Republicans are still neck and neck for a majority in the Senate. Here is a look at everything that stands as you see on this graphic. As of this taping, we are still waiting on Senate results from Arizona and Nevada. We also know Georgia is headed to a runoff, and we will come back on when we know more. For now, I'm Tyler Abrams for The Cut.
Thank you for that coverage, Tyler. For more information about the elections, tune into The Cut next week and to our social medias.
In other election news, the 2022 midterm elections set records in diversity. 12 women were elected governors in their states. Women reclaimed their role as the leader of the states in Maine, Alabama, Michigan, Iowa, South Dakota, Kansas, and New Mexico. Massachusetts and Arkansas also elected their first female governors. And no matter who wins in Arizona, Kari Lake or Katie Hobbs, Arizona will have its second female governor. Arizona has not had a female governor since 2015 when Janice Brewer was leading. Prior to the midterm election day, a suspicious package was delivered to candidate Kari Lake's campaign office early Sunday morning. The Phoenix Fire Department's hazardous materials responded to the report of the suspicious package delivered and began an investigation 2 a.m. Sunday morning. Phoenix police say there are no reports of injuries or illness. Lake, a former television news anchor, is currently a candidate of governor of Arizona representing the Republican Party in competition with Democratic candidate Katie Hobbs.
Former President Trump teased a potential 2024 presidential campaign at his rally in Ohio Monday. Trump told supporters he will make the big announcement on Tuesday, November 15th, at Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida. This comes after the midterm elections. Ideas of Trump running again have started to accelerate in recent weeks, with the former president and his team aiming to capitalize on his position as a front-runner to win the GOP nomination. Advisors have told Trump that the timing could be a positive since the combined effects of announcing a presidential run and daring the Justice Department to indict him as a candidate could drown out any political messaging by the congressional Democrats and the White House.
The Supreme Court is hearing a monumental case when it comes to adoption rights. Co-reporter Carly Poyer with the reason why it has some indigenous tribes concerned.
The Supreme Court held a hearing on November 9th regarding the Holland v. Bracken case. The controversial case was originally filed by Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, the Goldwater Institute, and by non-native foster and adoptive families who argue that the Indian Child Welfare Act is unconstitutional. They claim that the ICWA discriminates based on race and offers little to no protection to non-native foster parents. Defending the ICWA as constitutional and integral to their sovereignty includes but isn't limited to the Cherokee Nation, the Morongo Band of Mission Indians, the Navajo Nation, and the Oneida Nation in Wisconsin, and the Quinault Nation. In a joint statement, the five nations said, "We never want to go back to the days when the Indian children were ripped away from their families and stripped of their heritage." The ICWA was first implemented in 1978 as a response to centuries of cultural genocide through policy upon Indigenous children in the form of their overwhelming removal from their communities, where they were placed into non-native foster care or adoptive homes, or even being forced into boarding schools. Earlier this year, the U.S. found over 500 unreported bodies buried at 19 of these boarding schools, where Indigenous children were made to assimilate into white Western culture with no contact to their birth parents or tribes. The ICWA has protected Indigenous people for the past 40 years from repeating this tragic history. The same opponents are making another claim against the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act as equally being unconstitutional and racially discriminatory, which threatens tribal sovereignty. The outcome of the ICWA case by the Supreme Court will set precedents throughout the foster care and adoptive systems in the U.S. The Supreme Court will make their final decision in June 2023. For the Cut Network, I'm Carly Poyer.
Thanks, Carly. This decision could mean a lot to the Indigenous communities.
An Iranian court has demanded severe punishment on anti-government protesters as a part of a crackdown against demonstrations that have spread across the country over the past 6 weeks following the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini. Amini died while being detained by morality police for allegedly flouting the strict dress code imposed on women. A letter sent to lawmakers reiterates prior Iranian government claims that the ongoing protests, that it calls riots, were incited by the United States and other enemies of Iran. Although Iranian's government has provided no evidence to back up its claim of foreign involvement, the protests, Iran has already charged at least 1,000 people in Tehran province for their alleged involvement in the protests.
On November 4th, U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and the head of Ukraine's presidential office, Andriy Yermak, in Kyiv. Sullivan said the United States' support for Ukraine would remain unwavering and unflinching following next Tuesday's midterm congressional elections. 20% of the nature reserves and over 7 million acres of forest in Ukraine have been affected by the war, according to the World Wildlife Fund of Ukraine. External power has been restored to a key part of Ukraine's nuclear power plant 2 days after it lost all access to the national electricity grid as a result of shelling by the Russian army. 10 towns in the Kherson region were left without water and electricity due to damage. According to the head of the Sumy Regional Military Administration, 72 Russian projectiles landed in one of the communities of the region during the day. As a result of the Russian attack, shrapnel killed a 62-year-old woman who was in a garden during the shelling.
A major international climate meeting is underway in Egypt. Hundreds of world leaders will spend the next 2 weeks discussing global efforts to dramatically reduce greenhouse gas emissions and pay for the cost of climate change. This meeting comes at a crucial time for the planet. The meeting began Monday and is an annual event hosted by the branch of the United Nations that handles global negotiations about climate change. Major legislation has been signed here, like the Paris Climate Agreement, during the 2015 conference. Under that agreement, almost every country in the world promised to address climate change by coming up with their own plans to cut greenhouse gas. In 2009, industrialized countries pledged to provide developing nations with $100 billion a year in climate financing by 2020. Experts say that global efforts to limit climate change are in jeopardy without more aid. Developing countries need money to move to renewable energy so that their economies can grow without driving up greenhouse gas emissions. They also need funding to deal with the impacts they're already facing from rising temperatures. Scientists say it's likely climate change helped fuel floods in Pakistan that killed at least 1,500 people this summer, and that it contributed to torrential rain that triggered floods and landslides in South Africa.
The biggest iPhone factory in the world has been locked down due to China's COVID-0 policies. This is an effort to curb the surge of COVID cases. China is locking down the iPhone manufacturing plant for 7 days. The lockdown announcement comes after reports that several workers have fled in fear of getting trapped in the factory. One worker, identified as Chow by the Washington Post, said he and 200 other people tried to escape. The plant is owned by Foxconn, and according to Reuters, they quadrupled daily bonuses for those deployed at the factory. It is likely that this lockdown will hurt the production of shipment of iPhones leading into the holiday season. Just a few months ago, Apple released its latest iPhone model, the iPhone 14. Last week, they said the supply for its new model had been constrained due to the lockdowns. Workers at the Foxconn plant have taken to social media to express their frustrations about the strict measures. Foxconn has denied rumors about the death of any employees in its dormitories, according to Bloomberg.
Meta, parent company of Facebook, has begun laying off workers as of last week. CEO Mark Zuckerberg told executives of his accountability to the company's missteps and his over-optimism in growth that has led to the company's issue in overstaffing. Zuckerberg announced that the workforce would be reduced by 13%, which equates to 11,000 workers. Meta is a part of a major Silicon Valley layoff wave that includes Twitter, who fired a little more than half of its employees after Elon Musk took over the site. Microsoft let go of 1,000 of its 220,000 workers, and the world's largest online retailer, Amazon, has put a hiring freeze for the coming months. Zuckerberg said Meta will be taking additional steps to become a more efficient company by cutting spending and extending its hiring freeze.
Speaking of Twitter, the company said last week that it will add a gray official label to high-profile accounts to indicate that they are authentic. A Twitter employee who has been working on the verification overhaul said that the new label will be added to select accounts when the system launches. Those who will receive the new label include government accounts, commercial companies, business partners, major media outlets, publishers, and some public figures. That system has since been taken down. Blue check marks will soon be going away for those who don't pay a monthly fee. That's right, verified Twitter users will soon be required to pay a $7.99 a month subscription fee in order to keep their blue check mark. This subscription will also include added bonuses such as fewer ads. Experts have expressed concern that making the checkmark available for a fee to anyone could lead to impersonations and the spread of misinformation and scams. There are currently 423,000 verified accounts on Twitter, and a large number of those verified accounts also belong to individual journalists.
In breaking news, WNBA player Brittany Griner, who has been continuing her sentence in Russia, is being moved to a Russian penal colony. This is according to her lawyer. Prior to this, Griner was held in a Russian detention camp. She was serving a 9-year sentence after she brought trace amounts of cannabis into the country. Her lawyers say it was for medical use, but the exact location of the penal colony is unknown. But the U.S. hopes to find her and to bring her back home.
Kyrie Irving has made many controversial statements during his time in the NBA. His latest was an anti-Semitic one. Our Athena Kehoe is here for more on the story.
Thank you, Leslie. I'm here to update you all with some of the latest NBA news, specifically with Brooklyn Nets player Kyrie Irving. Irving was suspended for a minimum of 5 games without pay for promoting a film filled with anti-Semitic tropes on his social media accounts. The Brooklyn Nets team owner, Joe Tsai, reached out to Irving multiple times telling him to apologize, according to CBS Sports. Irving did not follow those requests. Because he did not apologize, the Nets felt that a suspension was necessary and that he was currently unfit to be associated with the Brooklyn Nets. Once the suspension happened, Irving finally posted an apology on his Instagram account saying, quote, "To all Jewish families and communities that are hurt and affected from my post, I am deeply sorry to have caused you pain, and I apologize," end quote. The rest of the apology can be found on his Instagram post. Sportswear company Nike is also taking action by choosing to no longer launch his new Kyrie 8, expressing that they do not condone any form of anti-Semitism. Irving has served 4 of the 5 games that he is suspended from. In order to be eligible to play, he must meet 6 specific requirements issued by the Nets. There is no word yet on when Irving will be returning to play. Reporting for The Cut, I'm Athena Kehoe.
Thank you, Athena. We will be sure to keep our eyes on this case.
On November 1st in Houston, Texas, popular rapper Takeoff from the rap group Migos was shot and killed in an altercation involving his bandmate and his uncle, Quavo. While playing dice at a bowling alley in downtown Houston, Quavo got in an argument with others and eventually shots were fired. Takeoff, who was sitting in the corner, was struck by the bullet near the head and died on the scene. This tragedy will not shine over Takeoff's career, as he will always be remembered by his talent and the hit songs with the group.
The new Black Panther movie is set to drop this week. Here's Cut reporter Charlie Vicario with more on the movie's budget and high expectations.
Thank you, Leslie. The new Marvel film Black Panther: Wakanda Forever will be released in all theaters today. Here's a sneak peek at the trailer.
We know what you whisper.
Based on the Marvel comics by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, Wakanda Forever will continue to explore the comparable world of Wakanda and all of the characters introduced in the first film. It will see the return of most of its original main cast. The film was rewritten after the death of star Chadwick Boseman from colon cancer in August of 2020. The absence of his character leaves a sorrowful void at the center of the film. The 2018 film was one of the highest-grossing films in Africa, with audience responding favorably to the Kingdom of Wakanda, which represented cultures in African countries. Films director Ryan Coogler hopes that the exploration of different cultures and history will impact global audiences. The movie costed a whopping of $250 million. Time will tell if it was worthwhile the investment for Disney or if the first movie in the series is the best. For the Cut Network, I'm Charlie Vicario.
Thanks, Charlie. You know I already bought my ticket.
Well, it finally happened. According to the lottery officials, a winning ticket for the record $2.4 billion Powerball jackpot has been sold in California. The ticket was sold at Joe's Service Center. The winning numbers were announced Tuesday morning after Monday's evening draw was delayed. While it is unlikely that you are the jackpot winner, lotteries are urging players to check their tickets on the chance you won one of the smaller prizes. Per the Multi-State Lottery Association, 22 tickets won minor prizes of just $1 million each. The jackpot was a record $1.9 billion, but grew to $2.4 billion by the time of the drawing. This made it the world's largest lottery prize, according to the Powerball. The jackpot was so large that California lottery officials didn't have the appropriate signage. At the gas station where the winning ticket was sold, taped a B onto signs that read "Millionaire was made here," so they would instead read "Billionaire was made here." The winner has yet to come forward. The ticket did, however, make one millionaire, the owner of the gas station, was awarded his own $1 million for being the retailer who did indeed sold the ticket. But also, the Houston Astros have defeated the Philadelphia Phillies at the 2022 World Series this past Saturday, as they beat the Phillies 4-1 in Game 6. The Astros became the World Series champions for the second time in franchise history and second time in the last 6 seasons. Led by Astros manager Dusty Baker, Baker became the oldest MLB manager in history to win the World Series at age 73. Astros 25-year-old superstar shortstop Jeremy Pena made history as the first rookie to win World Series MVP and ALCS MVP in the same postseason, finishing with a .345 batting average, 4 home runs, 8 RBIs, and a 1,005 OPS.
A quest to go back to space has been delayed yet again. The Artemis 1 rocket is delayed as Tropical Storm Nicole is expected to hit the east coast of Florida. NASA has been looking to launch the rocket since late August, but has run into technical delays with the fuel system. The launch date is being pushed back from November 14th to November 16th. This mission is set to help astronauts get back to the moon someday.
The election was not the only thing that caused things to turn red. Take a look at this. This is a photo of the moon turning red. It is referred to as a blood moon. It happened on November 8th in the early hours of the morning. This happens when the moon falls into Earth's shadow and leads to this reddish color. The next blood moon is not expected until March of 2025. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to follow us on social media.
And be sure to tune in next week for more of what's happening in the Valley and around the world, and based on our story selection the last 2 weeks in space. I'm Leslie Chapman.
And I'm Denson Cortez. Have a great day, Phoenix.